Hello and welcome to the Pre-Chiro podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ben Glass. I'm a chiropractor, and today we're having a meaningful conversation with a professional chiropractor, a chiropractic legend out in Mexico, Dr. Danny Gambino. Dr. Danny, can you get us started by just introducing yourself and reflecting on your pre-Chiro moment where you decided you wanted to become a chiropractor, that pivot point in life where you were attracted to take this path?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me here. This is a great channel, and I think it's a great resource for people looking into the profession. My journey began as a collegiate athlete. Got adjusted over a summer. I wasn't having any pain, wasn't having any problems, and I noticed that the following year, I my performance times were uh, ridiculous. They were off the chart. I couldn't attribute it to anything else I was tracking at the time, and I attributed it to getting adjusted that summer, 3 times a week for whatever it was, 6 or 10 weeks or something like that. Um, and then I went back the next summer, and to be honest, in his office was a poster on the wall, and it talked about what chiropractors did. We work with the subtle substance of the soul. We release the imprisoned impulse, etc. And that spoke to me. It hit me like a gong. I knew exactly what I was going to do. I didn't know what chiropractors really did. I really wasn't educated at that chiropractor's office. I didn't know anything about innate intelligence or the nervous system or the spinal column. I just went in, got adjusted, left, and then saw that poster, and I thought, this is really amazing thing ever. Whatever they do, I want to do that. And so that began my journey back in 19 probably 85, 84. Finished up my undergraduate degree and went on to Life University. Well, it was then Life Chiropractic College.
I was going to say that's actually really interesting. Can you maybe just reflect back to those times of, what the energy of the profession was like, what your experience going into this profession was like, maybe some surprises you encountered, some obstacles you encountered, maybe some mentors that you were able to connect with. Just, what was that experience like going into chiropractic school for you back then?
Well, there's a lot to unpack there, Doc, but I'll say this that, um, I had this vague idea that it had to do with physical health. And until I actually went to school and learned and studied not just the physiology and all of the other ologies that you have to learn, but the philosophy and the why behind what it is we're doing and how the chiropractic adjustment taps into that invisible healing uh, equation. Uh, that's what really did it. And so that was intriguing to me to see people who were medical throwaways recover under chiropractic care. I've had incredible mentors, absolutely incredible. They're giants in the field. A lot of them are passed away now, primarily Dr. Sid Williams, but there were dozens and hundreds. And as a student, we would be around them like fireflies or like moths to a lamp, and we would just listen to their conversations, and then eventually I guess they got annoyed enough and they took us to lunch, and then we picked their brains and we asked questions, and we were super inquisitive, but we were super humble at the same time. We didn't really want to impose our small-minded thoughts, and we wanted to learn. So we asked them tons and tons of questions, and those questions I helped forge the confidence and belief that those doctors had because they had to answer those questions. So I knew way back when that we were going to be teachers as well. And, I thought that people were going to line up on our table and we were going to do whatever we do chiropractically to their bodies and they would get well. And that was what chiropractic practice was. I hadn't realized that we would be teachers and we would be um, mentors and we would be responsible for a lot of things, above the table, outside the office. We were responsible for taking care of our own garden, if you will. So we had to practice what we preached, and that was a great teacher as well. So there was a lot of input, over the past 33 years now that have gone into what makes what made me a good chiropractor.
And can you just reverse engineer? You were an athlete, obviously, you mentioned growing up and just the mindset of an athlete, especially one that's able to reach the collegiate level. How did that really help you going through chiropractic school? Remain, as you said, humble, yet really curious, and recognizing that you needed to surround yourself by people who were a lot further down the path than you were, but also being teachable and the importance of being teachable and being open-minded and willing to listen to things that really challenge your belief systems, working with those things, right? Because that's really
Yeah.
the crux, I think, of what chiropractic students need to be aware of, that's part of the experience. But what was it like for you, and maybe how can you attribute your background as an athlete to that?
Well, as an athlete, I was a collegiate decathlete, and decathletes are strange in of themselves because they do so many different events that count really only as one event, and uh, we are always looking to shave, a tenth of a second or an inch or two on performances and throws. And it came down to, studying and being intimate with how my body functioned under different circumstances. Lack of sleep, in college, I still drank alcohol. So that that's not an endorsement for that product. But my point is that I was involved in the physiology. Now, being a highly competitive person, when I went to chiropractic college, I was able to make the rugby team and be on scholarship for them. And I was not the best player on the team. We had a lot of uh, teammates from overseas, South Africa, England, Australia, New Zealand, etc., and they grew up with rugby as we grow up with little league, and so they were much further along. So at that point, I realized this is a good chance to be a student and to learn. And you can't fill an empty cup, as it said. So the humbleness knows that the more I know, and even still, the more I know now, the more I realize I don't know that much. And so I'm a learner by nature. So I was able to just put whatever I thought on the background, learn the information, and then try it out, assimilate it. Do original experimentation on my body with chiropractic care, with all different healing modalities, and see what worked and what's true. I say this to chiropractic students all the time. What's true for you is what's true. That's it. And so if it's your truth that you got to follow this path, then you have to make that path happen. Um, but you have to find out what it is that you're getting into. You're getting into a very, very unique and spectacular healing profession that is more than just stacking Jenga blocks in a row so they don't fall over with gravity. Uh, it has a lot to do with how the body heals. And as a chiropractic student, you really need to learn how to articulate that.
Absolutely. If you could maybe go back and give yourself advice, or just speaking today to the chiropractic students that reach out and try and get mentorship from you, what advice do you give to chiropractic students to really structure their training, to really create this parallel curriculum to the program that they're in, that might not center its focus on the study of chiropractic and the skill sets that are required for a student to really at least develop some basic skills that will help them when they get out into the real world?
Sure. That's a tough one because I think there are like 16, maybe 15 chiropractic colleges now in the United States. And not all of them teach what um, the, the philosophy, the why. And really anything that you do in life, you need a why. If you want to start working out and you got to get up at 4:30 in the morning, you need a big why to get out of that cozy bed. So if you're going to go to a school that espouses a very physical, mechanical nature to its curriculum, um, then you need to make sure that you at least have access off campus extracurricular, that you can find out what this philosophy is about. Because if it's purely a mechanical physical therapy type of standpoint where you're, taking care of bad backs and sprains and strains, then you're going to last maybe 5, maybe 10 years, and you're going to be burnt out. You talk to some of these chiropractors on this program that have been around for a while, and they're as excited on the day you interview them as they were on the first day of, practice. And the reason why is because every day is a new day to be in touch with that life essence that exists in all of us. And we get to bear witness to that with the things that we do. So our facilitation, our chiropractic technique and adjustment education allows people to express more of themselves. And if you don't know what that is, then you owe it to yourself, your family, and really the world at large to understand what it is you're doing. And there's plenty of access to that. I know a lot of people will choose a chiropractic college based on location, based on where their mentor went, or out of convenience. And to be honest, you're a space traveler. You're going off in outer space anyway as a chiropractor. So you might as well just take it all in and go someplace that is going to put you in an environment that you are almost forced to learn. So for me, I was a New York City kid. I went to Atlanta. That was far for me back then. And, uh, it was a different environment, it's a different culture, different temperature. I was away from my family. I was in a way isolated and forced to, make friends, a new environment, and learn. And this was already after, undergraduate. So my advice to the young people out there thinking about a profession in chiropractic is really explore and sample some of these colleges and universities that you're considering, and get a feel for it. It should really resonate with who you are as a being, and how you want to be in 5, 10, 15, 20 years.
That's great advice. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. There's a lot that happens within this profession. There's a lot of change constantly taking place. I remember being a student, being in the president's office, trying to present on this program, but then realizing that there was bigger issues going on, and you had just basically walked past me and into a boardroom where you were going to discuss something as a group, as a collective group, that had to do with maybe legislation boards, the greater boards that are related to chiropractic education. But it was clear to me that you were very involved and that you were a warrior to maybe defend chiropractic, maybe be on the offensive for chiropractic. But either way, you were showing up. And as you mentioned previous in this conversation, there are more needs that arise that you can step into this sort of role and responsibility if you so choose. Can you maybe just talk about where that inspiration came for you, or why you chose to step up and really defend or represent chiropractic in a way that it needed to be, or just have your voice be heard in a time where there's turbulence and there's rapid changes happening?
Sure. Um, I've been blessed to be around some people who are movers and shakers and presidents of national and state organizations. And when we were first in school, it was all about getting through the academics, and then it was all about getting through the clinic, and then it was all about getting in practice, and it was all about, you know, making overhead. And then we had family, and it was all about family. And at some point, I realized that it wasn't enough. That chiropractic was a profession that was um, like a redheaded stepchild treated, and that marginalized and suppressed and oppressed and all this kind of stuff. But it was such a big truth for me that I had to get more involved. So I showed up at meetings not knowing anybody and not knowing what was going on. And then eventually somebody put me on some committee, and I did some work and made some phone calls, and it just snowballed and snowballed until I became president of the Chiropractic Association in my state. Those meetings with senators and assembly people, and um, writing letters and just showing up, showing up to lead chiropractors who were asking for more philosophy or asking for how do you do this and how do you do that. The collective group help was most enlivening. And, I've had college presidents say to me, look, you could see 5,000 people in a week. And if you don't do anything else, you're only going to see those 5,000 people, which is not a terrible number, by the way. But it's only 5,000 and the world is full of, billions of people. But if we can change laws for the better, so we're not so oppressed. So if we can get chiropractic available to people who would not otherwise have access to it, then we're changing generations. And that really inspired me. And it also emboldened me to take action because I saw people that were involved before I got really involved. I saw people involved that were, pushing their personal, I shouldn't say personal, but they were pushing an agenda that I disagreed with. And I thought, these people are doing it what they want. Why can't we push from our side? And so little by little, getting more and more involved. And there's a lot to speak just on that subject, but there's, when I'm done with this life, I want to be like a towel wrung out. Every drop of energy that I could put forth to make it a better place. That's my personal philosophy. And so, you know, there were sacrifices to be made. There's sacrifices on sleep, sacrifices on family, sacrifices on income, sacrifices on time. But in the end, I think it was worth it because we were able to move the dial in a lot of areas.
And the reason why I really wanted you to share that, because I think it's a great example. You're a great role model for students to recognize the importance of being involved, of getting involved, of being committed to something bigger than just your own personal practice success or your own personal path. And don't get me wrong, that's the, like you said, that's the focus early on, and that's great and that's important. You got to be able to give to others out of your own abundance. And if you're not really in the flow in developing your own personal expression, then that matters, and that needs to be recognized. But I really just wanted to acknowledge that you, since I've been in school about 10, 12 years ago, have been somebody that's been actively participating and actively engaged. And I think that, I'm curious what you think about this. I think that students can be given opportunities way earlier to be actively engaged and get involved and make a difference and contribute to the change that they want to see in the world. What do you think about, say, a pre-Chiro student? You had pre-Chiro clubs. Maybe you could touch on this, but what were the potential impacts that those pre-Chiro students could make on contributing to the bigger solutions that were being proposed for the profession?
Well, years ago when we started a pre-Chiro club in San Diego, we would call up schools and try and lecture to their health club or their pre-professional club or whatever it was. And then we found this was challenging because even if we did get to start a club in that institution, when that president of the club graduated, oftentimes the club would disappear and wane. So we thought, well, what if we just hosted it in a chiropractic office, my chiropractic office? So we could draw from all these different universities and colleges and JCs in the neighborhood. And, we would get 10, 12, sometimes 20 students there. Now, what they learned was they learned how to articulate what chiropractic is and what is not, and how it differs from medicine, how it differs from physical therapy, and very simple explanations like a safety pin cycle or, a brain body diagram or something that they could take home and explain to someone else on a napkin, a dinner napkin. And those moments empowered these students to um, gain confidence in speaking about chiropractic. And it also, what it did is it exponentially multiplied the message that was getting out there because it was a tangible thing. We're not going to tell people, okay, go home and explain to everyone about the 5,000 hours that a chiropractor has to take. That doesn't do anything for people. But everybody was talking about, at family gatherings, at sports, everybody's talking about their health. And this was a new idea for most people. And to be able to articulate that in a very simple way was very, very powerful. That being said, it has an exponential component to it, because even if that pre-Chiro student never even went to chiropractic college, they were able to, one, understand what chiropractic was, and so they were going to choose that for themselves and their future families, but also they might inspire someone else to become a chiropractor. And that's really what we were after. We were after this kind of exponential mushrooming of the principle to get out there, because the principle is not owned by the chiropractor, right? People have fallen down a flight of stairs and they miraculously get well, or their symptoms disappear. Chiropractic doesn't own that concept, but it does have a framework in which to, more often than not, predictably get a person from point A to point B along the health spectrum. And that's what really is exciting. It's so far outside of the allopathic drug treatment method that it's new and innovative. And that in and of itself is worth uh, understanding and being able to talk.
Absolutely, yes, yes. The pre-Chiro Club potential. So when you disbanded that club, did it get passed to a different office? I'm just curious. Is that still ongoing, or has that been let go?
When I left in 2020, we were doing multiple offices. We were rotating offices because I realized that all these students were just coming and they were seeing one office, my office. And so therefore that was 100% of a chiropractor's, it was 100% of the idea of what a chiropractor does. So we decided that it was important for them to see other practitioners that saw more people, saw less people, used different modalities, had different ideas. Some dressed in a tie, some were in flip flops, and it really gave a broader perspective of what was possible. And then we often spent the time doing, what's your ideal practice? And pre-chiropractic students were often confused about this because they didn't have a practice. But what would you like? Would you like an aquarium? Would you like a slide that goes from the third floor down to the first floor? Would you like to serve gourmet food? Would you like a juice bar? Would you like a kids area? Would you like a romper room? Like anything that they wanted was game. And we often had them write this down, and then they had to articulate it in front of the group. And what that did was it gave mass and it gave power to their idea, and other people were writing down notes from other people's ideas, and that kind of collaborative um, engagement made a huge difference. The millennials that we were dealing with at the time, they're more collaborative. They're not just the boomers are like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this by myself, I'm going to make it happen, and which is great. But millennials often want to be collaborative. They want to help. And so if there is a purpose and a vision big enough, bigger than their mindset, then they can attach themselves to and give uh, their skill set, their energy, their passion to. It makes it better for everybody.
Nah, that's awesome. That's super cool. Yeah, man, the pre-Cairo concept I think is a new one. I'd invite you to share some sort of insights into your mindset of is like where that came from, like why you started the pre-Cairo club. Was it an idea that you had seen working somewhere else? Was it a new idea from your vantage point? This segment, this audience, pre-Cairo students, I often metaphor to like a pregnant woman who's bringing a child into the world, and this concept of like bringing somebody into the profession, I think, is something that's often overlooked. And I'm just curious where your inspiration came from for pre-Cairo, and just how much you've thought about it through the years.
Well, almost since we were first in practice and we would go and do healthcare lectures at whatever venue we were at, there would often be a mom or dad come up with like a 15 or 16-year-old kid and ask them like, what does it take to be a chiropractor? How much does it cost? All that kind of stuff. And so we would talk to them individually, and I thought this is not going to work individually. So then we started going to the high schools and colleges and talking to them about what chiropractors do and how awesome it is in a interactive environment. After my involvement with a couple of universities, um, a good friend of ours, Dr. Mary Flannery, and I brainstormed, and we were like, how do we get this out? And so the idea of a club on campus was a great idea, but it had its flaws and its shortcomings. And so we decided that, we had a couple of volunteers for hosts. I think I was the only volunteer at the time. So we put it together, and it was different than a lecture. We brought other doctors in, and we found their stories. I found that the other doctors' stories were compelling because some were severely injured, some were paralyzed, some had family members that were unable to work, and through chiropractic care, they were able to regain their life and their mission. And so, bringing other doctors in. So when a chiropractic student chooses to go to school, they have some options. And we wanted to provide them with an option that was going to give them the best fit for them. And that was really an important thing. Some people were just going to go to wherever they were told to go. And some people were going to visit, 10 out of 15 institutions to find out what was going on for themselves. But when a student that came through our pre-Chiro club went to whatever school they went to, I personally stayed in touch with them. And maybe once every month or 2 or 3 sometimes, I just send them an email or send them a text and check in with them. How's it going? What are you at now? What quarter are you in now? What are you struggling with now? And I found that um, because I got so many thank you letters um, afterwards about how, getting them into a doctorate program was not the goal. The goal was to have them be successful, happy, productive, and spreading the chiropractic love. And in order to do that, they needed someone on the outside of the institution to give them a pat on the back or a kick in the butt or some perspective, or to know that a practitioner has gone through exactly what they're going through with finals or boards or something like that, and how they got through it, and give them some tools or just hear them out uh, to make their journey through school a little bit easier. I didn't really have that. I had one doc I talked to like once a year, but I found that those moments were super valuable for me. So I wanted to be more proactive with my involvement. I think we've sent 40 or maybe 50 students to school over the past 30 something years. And with each of those students, I tried to stay in touch. When they graduated, I got them a gift, usually a green book. And, they are now my colleagues and they are my equal. And they may practice differently than me, or they may have moved out of the country, but we're still connected. And I think that's another important aspect. Chiropractors cannot exist as an island. There's only, I don't know, 100,000 of us on the planet. And of those 100,000, maybe half of them are like interactive. Um, and so we certainly don't need to be tearing each other down. Um, you compare that to, I don't know, 1.1 million medical doctors in the United States. And so it's 10 to 1, more than 10 to 1. So that being said, we need to stick together. We don't always agree on everything, that's for sure. But I want the students that we send to know that I got their back. That if they're doing what they're doing for the purpose of serving the chiropractic principle and serving humanity in a way of, lasting purpose, loving service, then I got their back.
Yeah, no, that's special. It sounds like if you send 40 to 50 people to school, or at least just supported people to the point where they were able to come to the truth within themselves that this was the right path for them, that there was a relatively high probability that if somebody attended a pre-Chiro club for a semester or 2 or 3, that it would just strengthen their awareness, strengthen their understanding of chiropractic, and that in itself would be enough for them to say, yes, this is the right path for me. Is that safe to say, or is that true to you to say that the more a student became aware of what chiropractic was, the more it actually attracted them to this? Or would you say there was an equal amount of people that were repelled by the chiropractic principle and wanted to go and do something different after hearing the message of chiropractic? I'm just curious.
I would say that the vast majority of people that showed up at our pre-Chiro club, even if they never showed up again, were more interested in a more integrative, holistic healing kind of practice rather than, drug dispensary. Um, yeah, and the students that have gone through now, again, it's a multiplier effect. They're seeing however many visits a week, and those people are getting well, and those families are getting well, even if they're never under chiropractic care, because now you have a more solid, integrated, whole, healthy person inside the family unit. So when the students came in, they were more likely to be on board with the, above, down, inside out, ADIO philosophy of the healing comes from the inside out. A lot of schools do not teach that. They're afraid of it because it's too woo woo. But that's the way the universe functions. The farmer doesn't grow the corn, the farmer plants the seed and then stewards that seed, making sure it gets enough sunlight, water, keeps the weeds away, pests away, that kind of thing. But the inherent wisdom or intelligence inside that seed is what grows that corn. And so it's true with healing, and it's true with the development of a chiropractic, pre-chiropractic student to chiropractic student to chiropractor. There are certain stages that they can go. When you're dating, you know, you can't ask someone to marry you on your first date. You can. I doubt it'll go very well. So you can't take the totality of understanding what a chiropractic profession is about, or what the chiropractic practitioner can do, all of it on day one in one, hour and a half session once a month at a pre-chiro club. So there are certain stages that we had lined up. And, one of them was an introduction. It was very easy and light, and there was no pressure. You don't have to go to school. This is just an inquisition. You want to find out what it is, then you talk to a chiropractor. You want to find out what a plumber does, don't talk to an electrician, right? So we gave them ample avenues to ask questions of different practitioners. That being said, the next stage was for them to go check out an institution of their choice. Now, the ones that were super jazzed about the philosophy and the wisdom of, innate intelligence and inside out healing, well, that limited their possibilities because most of the colleges in the country do not teach that principle. And it was important that they check out the schools that did. Otherwise, they would still get a DC degree. They'd be a doctor of chiropractic, but they would be kind of lost at sea. And the important thing also is when that institution graduates you, do they have a strong alumni association? Is there a network to keep them connected to this principle? Or are they just, thank you for your money, here's your diploma, donate when you have money, bye? I wasn't about to support institutions that were like that. So although we never said don't go here, we said it sounds like you're into this innate life force, energetic love principle of healing. You should check out these schools first, and then person go check out a different school that is very more allopathic, medically oriented, physically. There we are.
Yeah, so I guess
So
the question becomes if every single
that
student, if if every single student went through your pre-chiro club before they went to chiropractic school, how would that shift the consciousness of the chiropractic student collective? What would that mean to the profession if everybody actually was involved or exposed to your pre-chiro club before having gone through any school, but that they had at least gone through the pre-chiro club and had those shared experiences?
We're there.
There we go. Can you hear me? Cool. I was just curious if every student had gone through, let's just hypothetically speaking, every student had gone through your pre-chiro club in the way that, let's just say, the most engaged students went through it, and that no matter what school they went to, they had been through a pre-chiro experience. What do you think that would do to the collective shared experiences of the next generation of chiropractic students? How would that potentially change the awareness, the consciousness, the certainty, the focus? I'm just curious just to get your perspective on that.
So every student who went through multiple sessions with us, and we put together this curriculum. This is what we want to do, because in the beginning we just got people who showed up for one club meeting, and then we got a few that showed up for multiple, but we didn't want to do the same thing. So we made up a curriculum. We're going to cover this. We're going to cover that. We're going to cover palpating. We're going to cover some higher level stuff. We're going to teach them how to do a leg check. No harm in that. And it's a skill set that they can practice forever. The ones that went to schools that were close to home, or that were closer to, that maybe they went to ones that were not necessarily holistic minded, innate philosophy. They carried within them that seed of understanding that the body has the wisdom, that the doctor is a facilitator, the doctor must be teaching. And they gravitated generally more towards the type of practice that was with lasting purpose, serving out of your own abundance, giving, showing up, and really being there for your people. Now, that being said, a lot of students are, they're young, they're, 18 to 25 years old in general, and they are, they want to help. But if they go into an environment where it's all about a singular visit, or it's all about fixing pain, it's a very limited consciousness. And if they hear that every day, some way or another, subtly or not so subtly, for 4 years, the chances of them coming out of that institution and serving from lasting purpose is going to be very much diminished. To this day, if I was not involved with people like yourself or other practitioners who espouse this philosophy, I probably wouldn't be out of the profession, almost definitely, because it's physically demanding, it's emotionally demanding, it's frustrating at times. And yet when you deliver that specific adjustment to a little baby, and that baby no longer has colic, or that baby no longer has, nystagmus or something like that, it resets your complete existence in those moments. And to see that over and over. Now, if they never get that opportunity because they don't understand what chiropractic philosophy is, and they don't get to talk to the mother about getting their babies checked at birth, or to that person with that, because they're all musculoskeletal, then you're missing out, and you don't get to experience the abject joy from delivering an adjustment and watching a miracle take place.
You're an incredible writer. Where did you develop your writing skills? Have you always written personally? You're a storyteller. as I've gotten to know you and just pay attention to you. Are you trained on storytelling and writing, or is that just something that you've developed within?
Um, I wouldn't say I'm trained on storytelling. I've studied storytelling, but I've always been a storyteller, and one of the reasons why is I'm number six out of seven children from a single mom, and in order to get attention or perhaps more food before dinner, um, I was an entertainer. I had to tell stories, and those stories, I found I got good feedback. People were listening, and I could influence people with my stories. So I got better at storytelling because I enjoyed it, and it was really something that made sense to me. As far as writing goes, um, I can't say whether um, I'm not a professional writer. Well, by the end of this year, I'll be a professional writer because I'm publishing a book. But besides that, I've written probably, letters home when I was in college, and letters to, of course, um, political figures and senators and that kind of thing. And I've journaled for decades, and I just enjoyed it. For me, it was a therapy. It was a chance to get what's going on inside my head out and like kind of clear out the closet, if you will. And, um, you know, whether my ability to write can influence others, time will tell. And I enjoy it. It's has its own challenges. Certainly, publishing a book has its own challenges, but I believe that people are engaged when you tell a story, especially a story about yourself, about your perspective and your take on it. If I'm telling you need to do this and you got to go to this school and it's very off-putting because it doesn't resonate with people. But if I say I made this choice because I experienced this, if you're similar, you may want to check out a similar path and avoid some stress. Storytelling is all about the perspective that you have. It's a way to visually engage an audience in order to elicit a response. And we want people to be excited, enlivened, empowered, happy, laughing, much more than being sad or depressed, even though life itself has moments when it's just there's a struggle, obviously, and it's difficult to rebound from, certain, we'll call them pivot points in life, death of a parent or a dog or, a car accident or loss of funds or these things happen. And the character is still there. You are still a light burning bright. And when these things happen in life, you can choose to be overtaken by them, or you can choose to find a way to make it, uh, keep this politically correct, um, make it a tool for you to use to grow and to evolve as a human being. And so life happens, it's going to happen to all of us. How you go through life is your choice. That's really the important thing. And there's 100 Hallmark cards that are like that. You know, we don't get to choose the hand we're dealt, but we get to choose how we play the hand. Those types of things.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. I think storytelling is a valuable skill, and it's something that could be intentionally explored and learned if someone chooses to. I think it is a valuable skill, absolutely. And I appreciate you detailing just what your experience of it has been. Just as having been so committed to being involved and paying attention, shall we say, what's what's kind of your story about the past, present, future of chiropractic as a profession, shall we say? The principle will live on regardless, but I'm just curious to ask you to maybe share a story if free chiropractic can really grow and our schools can fill up to the point where they're expanding campuses and there's potentially new schools that are focused on chiropractic at their core, sprouting up around the world, new countries. I'm just curious what the potential is that our profession has. Just spoken to a student who's already inspired or maybe not inspired, but learning about chiropractic.
Wow. So the future of chiropractic, it will be determined by the truth of it. You cannot force anyone to do anything, even if you think it's good for them. That being said, I envision that people want to feel like they're helping others, that they want to uh, help others. They want to be helped. I mean, it's collaborative and it's positive and it's truth. It's way better than dumbing somebody down, forcing them to do something, drugging them, mandating them for their better, you know, for the betterment of the whole. I'm pretty much an individual person. I think that a sovereign individual is the strongest person on earth. But I also think that the future of chiropractic, like you said, the principle is going to live on, whether chiropractors do it or not. Chiropractors just happen to be super in line with this healing principle, and there's an avenue to do it. Now, chiropractic college is popping up everywhere. Good idea? Yes, good idea. Will some fail? Yes, because of logistics, just like chiropractic offices. Some have good intentions and they don't have a business skill, and they didn't get enough help or mentorship or whatever, and they go under. Chiropractic colleges, I feel, can be the same way. The right now, the curriculums and the institutions are tied to the matrix. And that makes it a little bit more challenging because the matrix does not want love and service. The matrix wants the opposite of that. And so my wife, Dr. Kim, and I have talked extensively for decades here and there about our school. Like, what would, if we were going to create a school, what would we have in there? And we actually, the reason, the reason I'm in Mexico is because I was invited to check out a place that might be a good venue to establish a philosophy based chiropractic college. Now, that being said, there's a lot that would go into that, obviously, but it would have to be outside of this kind of matrix. What do we want to teach? What do students want to learn? They want to learn the how to adjust, the why to adjust, the when not to. They want to know how to build their practice. They want to be the best facilitating healers that they can. They want to make an income to support themselves and their families. And then everything else is a waste. Now, is it important to study histology, for example? In a way, yes, it is important because you need to know the depth and the breadth of how far this innate intelligence flows. And taken with that understanding, histology would be a joy instead of memorizing blood slides. If these schools popped up and we had 100 or 1,000 students per school, game changer. The overriding principle um, of healthcare on this planet would crumble. It's crumbling already because it's based on a false premises. And the last gasp of a dying paradigm is that they try and mandate their beliefs onto you. It's not freedom based, it's slavery based. And so, since I'm not into that, we thought this would be a good idea to pop up a chiropractic institution. Um, those plans have gotten sidetracked again, so it's not the right time. And we're working on other things right now. But I think the future of chiropractic is going to be multiple chiropractic institutions teaching innate philosophy and multiple practitioners enjoying their lives to the fullest. This is not a uh, there's some sacrifice to be made, but it's not a sacrifice. You don't have to be celibate. It's not a priesthood, not a nunnery, but by developing yourself and your understanding and your skill set, you will make somebody else's life better. And the ripple effect is tremendous, right? We always have these philosophical discussions. What if someone were able to adjust Hitler before he rose to power? Would that change his mindset? Because it's as much an internal game as it is an external game of health. Mentally, not well. The point is, we don't know how far reaching something we may even think about today will affect hundreds of thousands, millions of people over the course of generations in the future. We don't know. And if it's self-serving, it's limited. If it's serving others, it's infinite.
As we wrap up here, if you could maybe just share some final thoughts on any students that are maybe considering this path, and maybe just share the life that you've been able to lead, just reflect on the good times and maybe the bad, but just you and Dr. Kim and what you've been able to create and the impacts you've been able to have as a chiropractor.
Well, for the students, I would say if you don't have a mentor, if you don't have someone that you're following, and by the way, mentors are not gurus, right? They're just people that'll help you to the next level. And when you're done, it's okay to let that mentor be and find another one. That's evolution. So if you don't have a mentor, get one, get me, get Dr. Glass, get anybody that's probably been on these podcasts, interviews, and ask them a question. One question, nobody's too busy for a question. And some of it would require a conversation, and others require more conversations. And I encourage that. I've always tried to be available to all of the people that ask me questions. So that's one thing. So get a mentor. If you don't, use me. If you don't have one. And then what was the second part of that question? I think the first part was super important.
That was good enough. I think I was asking you to just in a minute or 2 minutes, just reflect on the life you've been able to lead, the experiences you've been able to have, the impacts you've been able to share with your partner, Dr. Kim, as a chiropractor these last 30 plus years.
Wow. 1 minute. Well, we've had a wonderful ride, and we're still going strong, and we've had our ups and downs, and we've struggled. And, I doubted myself. I wondered if I made the wrong choice and I should have just been a medical doctor. So those things will happen. And this is where you need your tribe, your people around you. That being said, we've able to practice in multiple states, multiple practices. We've served hundreds of thousands of people over the years. Like I said, 40 or 50 went to chiropractic college. Now they're serving others. So that was fantastic. We were able to raise our 3 boys in the chiropractic mindset. They were all born at home, unassisted, no drugs, and all of the things. We unschooled them until they were ready to get a higher education. And these are things that we felt were valuable to us. We poured all of our extra resources, not into vacations or things, but into our children. And that's just the way we did it. I believe that the chances of us having a better planet and a more sane and loving planet is that if people took advantage of the people that they admired and learned from them, and then jettisoned off in their own and did their own individualized creations as offshoots. I'm not Dr. Sid Williams, but because I mentored under him, we were able to create the life, both in clinical practice as well as administrative and political practice, that I'm very proud of.
Well, thank you so much for sharing with the students today, Dr. Danny. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Doc. I think you're doing a great thing, and I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.